Hello and welcome to Tech. I'm your host, Carolina Milanesi, and today's episode is titled Paving the Way and Falling Short, Tech's Accessibility Journey. Today is Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and I am delighted to have this conversation with a very talented and prolific tech reporter who I've also have the pleasure to call a friend, Steven Aquino. Steven is a freelance tech journalist who has been covering accessibility and assistive technologies for years. He's based in San Francisco, and his work has featured in The Verge, TechCrunch, Macworld. He's also an authority in accessibility, called upon different podcast and speaking opportunities from NPR to television and many tech conferences. The whole industry always looks at what Steven has to say because I think his passion and dedication to accessibility, coupled with his knowledge, make him the perfect arbiter of how technology is developing around accessibility. And with that, help me welcome Steven to the conversation.
Hi there.
Hi, thank you for being here. This is way overdue. We've been trying to get together and our calendars never kind of work out. And I'm delighted that the timing is so perfect to have you on and chat to us about accessibility and this journey that tech is on. And I want to start asking you a little bit of an assessment on, where are we today? What are, from your perspective, the things that tech is getting right, where we've seen some progress, and where on the other end, they're still falling short?
That's a loaded
I know.
question. I would say probably in the last 4 years, certainly since I've been doing my column at Forbes, um, as I've sort of expanded my view of the tech industry. I think accessibility has gotten a lot stronger in terms of how it's seen and everything. It's still a topic that 90% of people don't get. Um, but you definitely see a lot of companies making huge strides there. Where I think it could be stronger is probably um, uh, is probably on our side of it in terms of media. Um, I, I I tend to think that um, accessibility is something that is not covered enough. Like you see a lot of other social justice um, topics in tech, and there's not a ton of accessibility coverage there. And I think I could spend 3 hours talking about this, but I think uh, there's a long way to go with how like people on the news side, you know, cover accessibility. So um, it's sort of up and down, I would say.
And that's fair. And speaking for myself is interesting because I mean, you know me well, and you know that I talk a broad range of topics around social justice and issues, but I do feel somewhere in some way that I'm not equipped to always talk about accessibility in a deep way. I can be an advocate, I can be an ally, but I always feel I just send people to you because you do this for a living. And I think that sometimes if you're not deep enough into accessibility, and this I'm talking about from a writing perspective, right? I'm always very concerned about talking about accessibility where I end up talking about the privilege versus the people that actually need it. And so talking about some accessibility features in a light way, if you like, instead of getting into the depth of it. And I think that sometime with accessibility features that happens, right? That we see something that is being created for accessibility reasons, and then the masses adopt it as a feature of convenience. And it's good and bad, right? When things like that happen.
There are a lot of times where people say accessibility for is for everyone. But I hear that from people, at Apple and Amazon and Google and so on and so forth. Like this idea that, anyone can get help from accessibility, which is honest. Like that's accurate. But at the same time, to what you were saying, I tend to see a lot of people gravitating towards accessibility for not accessibility, but for other things. And I think it kind of takes away a bit, I guess, to what they're intended for. And I could think of a couple examples of that, but I, I think people at large should understand that that accessibility software is built with a very specific idea, and you can't just co-opt it because you want to do something else. So,
I totally agree with you, and I think that is, I don't know if it's just ableism that gives you that power of thinking that is for you when it isn't, um, or if it's just, I don't know, human nature, and that's what we do. I'm curious on your side if there's specific milestone that you think of when you're thinking about that tech journey around accessibility that you really see as kind of game changers when it comes to making technology really more accessible.
ooh, that's a good one. Geez. I'd probably have to say, like, right now, with all the hoopla with AI, and with all the talk of AI being evil and horrible, and like chat GPT, like those tools, like not being smart. um you know I think a lot of, and again, this kind of harkens to what I said, earlier about people in the tech news, like not covering this, but like um people are not seeing that a tool like ChatGPT um, can really help a disabled person like do homework and um, research topics in a really consolidated format. Um, so someone who has autism or some other cognitive um, issue where like you don't have to have like 100 Google tabs open, right? You can just have this one app on your screen and you can type in it and it can tell you things and like people don't consider that that angle in like how huge that is because not everyone can Google 100,000 things and keep everything straight. So, I mean, yeah, that that there's talk about accuracy and all that, but like it's super important to just know that that you know uh, what you're able to do with Chat GPT is like super helpful. So
I agree. And I think that as generative AI becomes more multimodal, that is actually going to be even more useful, right? So that you're not necessarily forced to just do voice or typing, but you can use other ways of interacting. I was going to ask you, and thinking about new technologies, and one is Gen AI, but the other one is AR, VR. Thinking about Vision Pro in particular, if you do think that these technologies are have a way to really help with accessibility, closing the gap versus actually made it broader. And you talk to AI. Tell me how you feel about VR and AR in that respect. Is it helpful or is not?
well, Apple. Well, I don't know if I should say this or not, but Apple had me down back in February or so. I want to say, and finally got some hands-on time with the headset. They sent me one shortly after, so I have one here at home. I think, well, I think in terms of the accessibility, I think you kind of you have to look at it from a couple of angles. I think um, as a headset, like as a software, um, I think that Apple has made the highest accessible headset that I've ever seen. Just having the OS um, be what's the word I'm trying to say? Like be built on top of other Apple software, like having that where they control the whole stack, like it's a huge deal. So like
And not having
whatever.
controls, I am assuming, right? Not having controls for people that have some motory issues is going to be a big advantage as well.
Yeah, and like just having, Apple's like they've been doing it for several years, so having that there, and then so that's important. But then also too, like um, just when I use the headset, like I'm just super excited by how like when I want to watch Ted Lasso or something, like it's so nice that I can make things 100 feet long, right? That I don't have to strain or anything. I can just sit on the sofa and I can just watch a whole season, and I don't get you know eye strain or anything, and the audio is good. Now, I mean, it depends on your eyesight and your hearing and all that stuff, but for me, like I, I mean, if I have a 65-inch TV at home and it's super nice and everything, but having the headset on to watch TV is just like so much more accessible because um, you know it can be 100 feet, 100 inches long, right? And I just think that's so nice, and um, I think you know the headset. It's not. It's $4,000. I think the one that Apple sent me is like 4,000 and change or something. So it's not cheap, and disabled people can't afford like a whole lot. So like it depends on like what you can afford and what you do with it. Um, but I think you can see like where the technology is going, and I think that in 10 years, 5 years, hopefully, like you can get a Ray-Ban sized Vision OS, um, Apple, something, because then you'd be opening it up to a lot of other things like talking to people and contacts and so many other things that the headset is not social for. Like
Yes.
you don't want to take it outside. So
Yeah. Despite what we've seen of people driving with it or whatever it is, crazy stuff that they do, I agree with you. Yeah, you don't really want to be outside with it. Um, Going back to that initial assessment that we were trying to make, if you're thinking about, so we talked about the kind of a watershed moments. If you're thinking about what technology companies are struggling the most with, like what are the areas that are just really stubborn, that are really difficult to tackle? Is it from a technology perspective, or is it more just how people are thinking about accessibility in your view?
that's a good question. That's a really good question. I am inclined to think that uh, accessibility has to come down to just how people think, right? Like I I know that this is not the most charitable way to say this, but um, the fact is, from how I see it, is like society was not built for me. Like that's the whole idea of why accessibility would exist. Because if we didn't have it, then I couldn't be I couldn't access anything because society is not built to accommodate for me, right? Um, so what I'm saying is, I think a lot of it has to come down. It comes down to uh, uh, you know how people think about uh, accessibility and especially in a technological sense, like not it's okay if you don't know stuff, but it's important that companies and people don't um, tack it on like at the end. So it's this thing that's like extra that a small subset of people use, right? That's why I'm always so excited to talk about Apple and to talk about all these other people who are actually doing the hard work because um, they do it from the very start and it goes all the way through, right? And that is so important, and people don't understand that. And that again, it goes to how society, and I'm not even talking about technology now, but just how society thinks about people like me. So yeah.
I could not agree more that it has to be built in from the very beginning. And I think that aside from, where we are from a societal perspective, I had the privilege to have Dave Dane from Microsoft on my podcast last year, and we were talking about the future of PC, and he said the for a PC to be the device of the future, it has to be accessible. That is one of the core qualities, if you like, that the PC will need to have. And to your point exactly, a lot of companies don't think about that, don't think about accessibility as a core component of what the device or service that they bring to market needs to have. But another point that he made that I love to refer to often is that as much as we talked about trivializing accessibility earlier, there's the other side of that coin, which is that he always says we will all be disabled at some point in life, right? It's just the degree of which. And I'm very short-sighted. I'm -11 on both eyes, which is severe. So when I don't have my contact lenses in, I really cannot see further than my nose. I'm getting old. My hearing is getting, I don't want to get all depressed here, but it's true. Like at different points in life, even due to an accident and you break a leg or whatever it is, we all experience something that immediately, I think, makes us realize how fortunate we are and how we are, you know,
Well,
enabled.
and that's the whole idea too. Like, so much technology is built by young teams and young, like 20 something people who don't have anything wrong with them, and they don't think ahead to when they're 70 and 80, like, or they could get hit hit in the street, or they could fall down their stairs, or like whatever happens in and like accessibility is so important. I mean, if I was just talking to someone who said, you might not read accessibility now, but you'll need it later on. And I just wish that more people thought about that.
And I think that this goes to, in my view, the whole mantra of, not about us without us, that, really speaks to the fact that technology companies should have people within their developer and product design team, somebody that can understand what that means. And I think that is true about diversity, including accessibility, because often we talk about diversity in terms of gender and race, and that's where it ends, right? We're not really being more comprehensive about talking about people with disabilities and having their voice in that conversation.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to hit on too. Like, you have all these uh social justice stuff with gender and race and everything, but no one ever talks about disability, and that's really hurtful because there are gender people, sorry, there are disabled people who are who hit that who are uh, same se- same se- that same sex couples, and are people of color and all those other types of people, and 9 times out of 10, um, disabled people are just like not even in the conversation. So
I,
it's
I
hard.
totally agree with you. I think that intersectionality is still something that everybody is struggling with, and that's true about gender and race, and as it is about accessibility and race. And even if you look at beyond technology and you're looking at film and content, you very rarely see some of that, or if you see it, it's just like one character and it's like a cookie cutter of what that looks like. um if we're looking at the next 5-10 years, I'm getting you to where your future thinking are you optimistic about where we're going with accessibility, or are you still concerned that things are not moving quick enough?
Yeah, I think it harkens back to where we first started. When I said that, like, in terms of the technological things, like I think tech companies are going to get stronger at this. Like as I said, I've seen companies like Apple and Google and Amazon and small startups, and you know, they're all like trying to do good good work here in terms of hardware and software and everything. Um, where I'm concerned is, and I don't want to sound, self-serving, or anything, but uh, as somebody who's been doing this for a long time and who doesn't have a team of people, to help me, um, like if you kind of survey the tech news landscape, um, there isn't anybody or any org that is doing the type of like news to that I'm doing, like in terms of the depth and the accuracy and everything else. Like, um, I know other di- disabled people, in news, but in terms of technology, like I am really it, right? And I don't say that to sound, arrogant or anything, but what I'm saying is I have a really strong concern that 5 years from now, 7 years from now, like I am still gonna be doing this, and the landscape is still gonna be pretty terrible at accessibility, right? Like, um, it's so hard to get eyeballs on this topic, and it would really help if, like, a Times or Wall Street Journal or any of the big old news people would help us, and they just don't have the attitude for it, I guess. And it's just really frustrating. And I hate to say, like, sometimes I don't feel like it's gonna change in the next 5, 10 years.
That's a depressing thought to almost land on, but I tend to agree with you. I think that unfortunately, I don't know if it's our capitalistic society or what it is. A lot of times we follow the dollar sign, we follow the hype, we follow whatever. So unless there's something negative or really exciting that hits the news cycle, it just doesn't get the same level of attention, and it is sad that that is the case. And I wonder, to be honest, that like from me, the ray of hope is that the next generation cares more about this than my generation does. And you're in between because you're way younger than me. But like if I look at my kid and I look at the Gen Z generation, there's so much, especially around uh, just how people are, the neurodiverse generation, right? Gen Zs are so neurodiverse, and I think that there's such a, I don't know, I see kids being way more vocal uh, about it, and about advocating for themselves, right? Versus my generation, where you grew up by hiding and not talking about things, whether it is, mental health, or trying to kind of hide whatever shortcoming you feel that you had. So that's the only thing that has me positive, but I tend to agree otherwise with you. So here's my last question, as we are running out of time, unfortunately, already. It is, if you had a magic wand and you could just wave it and magically accelerate inclusion, what would be the thing that you would do other than change everybody's mind?
Uh, I would definitely like put disability on the same level of uh, um, height, I guess you could say, as gender and race. So, so all three would be on equal footing. So that would be my thing, so that everybody could see it all, and then see the intersection, the intersectionality of it all.
That is awesome. And, you would think that by now you didn't need a magic wand, but so be it. Where can people find your amazing work so that they can because I think part of it is learning, right? Is having an open mind and start to learn more. So where can they find your amazing work?
Um, I would suggest probably my Forbes column. You can just Google Forbes Steven Aquino, or um, my portfolio site, which is just a single page site, is stevenaquino.co. And that like talks about who I am, and helps people find my work and everything.
And you're also very vocal on social media, so people should definitely follow you on everything that they're on.
Yes, I am still on X, even though I've got issues with that, but I'm still there because that's where all the people are, and but I'm all over. Like I'm on X, I'm on Threads, I'm on, oh heaven knows, I'm on all of them. But yeah.
You're on LinkedIn as well. And we will put some of those links in our show notes as well, so people can find you easily, because you're definitely worth reading and be acquainted with, because of your work and because of the generous heart that you have. So thank you for being here with me today. I really appreciated the conversation.
Thank you so much. It was fun.